Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're having the panel on women leaders in tech. My name is Jinhee Kim, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of UIU, an esports organization based out of the US. With me today, I have three wonderful women involved in startups and entrepreneurship. We have with us Fallon Fatemi, the founder of Node and also a serial entrepreneur. And we have Susan Kim, the CEO of Edmodo, and Namsup Kim, the CEO and founder of Instint Tattoo. We're going to start off by asking each of you to give a little bit of background, your personal and entrepreneurial background to the audience. Fallon, would you like to start, please?
Sure. So my name is Fallon, and I'm born and raised in Silicon Valley. My parents were entrepreneurs. My grandmother was an entrepreneur, so I sort of didn't have a choice. I was born into the tech world. I started working at Google when I was 19. And so at the time, I was the youngest employee at the company, and I was there for 6 years. And while there, I was focused on global expansion for our syndication partnerships. So the deals were Google powered search and advertising for the biggest properties on the web. And then spent sort of the first half of my 6 years at Google, and spent the latter half of my time at Google actually at YouTube, where I was building strategic partnerships, working with companies like Comcast and Disney. After 6 years at Google, jumped into the startup world, where I spent another 6 years doing strategy consulting for startups, VCs, corp dev, doing a lot of matchmaking between people and companies and resources. I decided to do an analysis of all the introductions that I made in the 6 years I was in the startup world, and uncovered that a vast majority of those introductions had led to some life-changing outcome for individuals or businesses. And from that was sort of the aha moment behind my last company, Node, and really with the mission to take intuition that super connectors leverage and scale opportunity discovery. So connecting people and organizations in a way that results in transformative outcomes. That vision, after raising 40 million and 7 years later, led to a mission to democratize AI. And the company that I started is called Node, which was recently sold to Sugar CRM in August.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Susan, would you like to give us a little bit of your background?
Sure. My name is Susan, and I run an ed tech company called Edmodo. We are a global education technology platform. Prior to that, I was the CEO of a VC-backed startup called Eat With. And then before that, I was the CEO of another VC-backed startup called Plum District. And then before that, I also spent some time at Google and eBay, and started out life as a management consultant. And I would say that going down this sort of entrepreneurial sort of career path wasn't something that I had planned on or ever anticipated. But I would say how I've really kind of come to love what I do really has to do with, I think the turning point was actually when I had children. So I had my second child. I had my first child when I was at eBay. I had my second child when I was at Google. And when you have kids, I knew 100% as soon as I had kids that I was going back to work. There was no way that I was going to stay at home. However, I think when you are a parent and you go back to work, you realize that if you're going to leave your cute babies at home, when you go to work, it has to mean something. Like it has to mean something to you, and you have to have an impact. And so I felt, particularly when I was at larger companies, that, you know what, this is actually pretty easy. And while maybe the lifestyle was great, I really felt like I wanted to have more skin in the game. And that's when I actually left, at the time, Google, to actually start really going down the path of working at scrappy startups. And in particular for me, being a serial CEO, I go in oftentimes to companies that still have struggled with finding product market fit. And so it is like an entrepreneurial journey, even though I'm not the founder, but I have to kind of go through all the steps of getting there. And I think it's been, for me, incredibly rewarding, super hard. But I think that kind of, for me, it was essentially motherhood that inspired me to keep doing what I do.
That's awesome. Thank you. Namsuk, would you like to give a little bit of background, please?
Yes, this is Namsuk. I'm the CEO and co-founder of In스턴트타투. Unlike Fallon and Susan, I'm based in Seoul and I was born here and raised here. And my career background, unlike Fallon and Susan, this is my first entrepreneur journey. Before that, I was in Procter & Gamble and was in a beauty and consumer sector as a marketer. So I started my career in Procter & Gamble in Seoul, and I moved to Singapore to manage all the beauty brand in the Asia headquarters. So I look for a lot of different opportunity in Southeast Asia and a lot how different people live there. And I saw and the opportunity of the beauty industry and the consumer product as well. So I was fascinated by how innovation of the beauty is actually change women's life, even their life a little bit of the miserable in Southeast Asia. They still clean up their face and then they make up their face and then they feel alive through beauty. So you can imagine the life of the women in Southeast Asia is totally different from developed market like US or South Korea. So I believe in huge potential of the beauty, how it can change, actually empower women, and also give more opportunity to the people, even in the lower income countries. So that is actually a starting point of I want to create more opportunities for those people. And sitting on the big corporate like Procter & Gamble gave me a huge opportunities to explore more things and then learn a lot of things. But I actually wanted to start my own and I do something on my way. So I look for other options and then I left the Procter & Gamble after 10 years of the marketing a brand management career in Procter & Gamble. So I joined one of the fastest growing K-beauty startup, and I was marketing director there. And I learned how to operate small company. I understand what is taking the risk, which I cannot really feel or learn from the big corporate. So that was my starting of my entrepreneur journey, working as a startup. And coincidentally, while I was working in a small company, I met my co-founder as a housemate. So we had a beer every Wednesday night, and then we talk about a lot of potential and a new adventure of our life. And she was working in a beauty e-commerce, and then beauty definitely was on the topic of our table. So we started as a side initiative. So we are working for our own career, and then we just tested it. And In스턴트타투 came out from those particular moments. And then we confirmed the product is really viable, and then we've got a huge success in a very, very early stage of the brand launch. And we've got an investor and we've got a very solid team. So we decided to start a company, and then we decided to be an entrepreneur with the In스턴트타투.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks so much. I know I'm the moderator, but I just want to throw in my a little bit crazy background journey. So Susan, you kind of went backwards to all your different, roles. I'm much older and further along in life than everybody on the panel, but I did start off after university and management consultant like Susan, but over the course of time, after I went into fashion, I worked at Ralph Lauren for a while in the 80s doing fashion design, and then I had several children, moved to Singapore at one time. So I have a little connection to you living in Singapore. And then when I came back to the States, decided to go to law school at the age of 40. And so I went to law school and I started practicing. And while I was doing that, as a side project, I started working on some like early education kind of books for my young daughter. And that's, I think, when the entrepreneurship bug hit me, when I started working on that. And I left the law firm to work on that and start developing children's apps. So it kind of went into, even though I didn't really know anything about that, went into kind of education and app at the very beginning. Moved to London, worked for an education tech startup. But at the same time, I also found when I had moved there that this was when Foursquare and was it now I've forgotten, Instagram, all of those were just starting to get going, and I felt a need to like figure out how I could shop locally, because I just moved to London and there were just so many different places. And so at that time, started a company called SnapBet, where we were using like local and social to help you shop for products kind of in the spaces that you were in. And so that was what I had done prior to starting this esports journey. And so it's I'm a little fish out of water everywhere I go, it seems, because now, when you think of esports, you think of 15-year-old, 18-year-old young, mostly guys playing video games. And here I am at next week, I'll be 58 years old, Asian woman,
You
like
do
going
not
to all
look
these like
58.
sporting,
What are you using on your face?
esports events and things like that. So kind of like all over the place. So I listening to you all, and what I find interesting is that you took the places that you were previously at, if you were at bigger companies like P&G and Google, and kind of from your experiences there, found something that you thought was a problem that needed to be solved, or an opportunity. So I'm curious, like, how did you know that it was like the right time for you to start a company, or go, take that that path for you, Susan, like leaving one of the larger companies? Like, what was it that made you like, okay, I'm ready, I want to try this? And Fallon, if you wanna.
Sure. So, I mean, for me, it was largely around, identifying a problem that I believe that I was the right person to solve. And the only vehicle to do that was starting my own company, because I didn't see this problem being solved in terms of, connecting people and organizations in a way that could result in like your next big opportunity, personal and professional. And what's interesting is that vision ended up evolving into something I could have never planned on, which is we became an AI company. Turned out AI was the right tool for the job, and democratizing AI was the solution to actually solving that problem. And I could have never anticipated that we would have ended up, going in that direction. But I think that's also part of the magic of being an entrepreneur, and really having that founder product fit, where you're the right person to actually solve that problem.
Mm-hmm. And Namsuk, you were talking about your experience at P&G, and then also at another beauty startup. And you kind of talked about a little bit, like, how did you know it was the right time for you to like venture into, entrepreneurship?
Everything takes time, right? So I believe most of the event make us to be an entrepreneur. I believe all of us dreamed very long time to be part of this entrepreneurship. So when your desire really mature at a certain level, when you are ready from yourself, very deep inside of yourself, I think that is a big part of the timing. But just building on the Fallon's point, starting a company and making a company is totally different from just selling a product or making some money. Company, by definition, it's an organization sustainably create values to the people, so consumer, investor, and employees. So just like says Fallon, you definitely need a product, minimum viable product which can solve the problem and help resolve any issues from the people, so which to the consumer and users definitely. And build onto that, 2 points should be there. You've got someone who can finance you. It can be by your family, or it can be VC, it can be by yourself. So just only idea cannot be sustainable, and definitely you need a capital to make it scale, and you can have an impact. So the viable product should persuade the investors and some other people who can make you should make other people believe in it's gonna work in the market. So investor is the other side. And the last but not least, you definitely need a team. So a team who can follow you and who can make the vision come true into the reality together, because you cannot do anything by yourself. So those triangle with the minimum viable product, and then some people who can finance you and some people who can work for you, I think those triangle, when it's clicked, I think that is the right time to start a company.
And I think actually what Fallon was saying really resonated, which is when it's that problem identification, like when there is something that you're like, oh my gosh, this needs to be solved. And then that kind of, that driving force of, and I can do this. So even, Namsuk really laid out a really great framework, but even if you don't have the team, and even if you don't have the investors, if you really believe that this problem is big enough, it needs to be solved, and that you can do it, I think you can make the rest of it materialize. And I think that's the definition of an entrepreneur, is to be able to control or influence those resources that you don't actually have, right?
I would also argue that you're never ready to start a company.
Because actually, if you knowing what you do now, it's kind of crazy, right?
It's like actually, I see a lot of, I don't have kids, but I see a lot of analogies to my friends that do have kids, where it's kind of like, you don't know what to expect when you're about to have a kid, right? It's, you learn. And I think, like, for me, I mean, I was in my 20s when I started Node. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. But I was so dedicated, I was so passionate about it, and I had the will to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could, and figure out how to recruit people and hire the wrong people to then learn to hire the right people. And so a lot of it is just failing fast. So then you get a lot of information, then you figure out how to improve, but it's not for the faint of heart. And like, what's absolutely required is embracing being uncomfortable, because that is the only way that you are going to grow. And being an entrepreneur, first and foremost, before your company can grow and be successful, you have to be open to growing and being successful. I think that's a really, really important piece that I think is make or break for anyone who the difference between wanting to be an entrepreneur and actually being one.
Right, I cannot agree more with Susan. The core part of starting the company is how I want to resolve the issue, and then how big is the issue. And I believe the investors and the team actually can help identify and then even strongly believe, this is going to be big. This is an issue, and then people are agreeing, and then people are helping out to resolve the issue. I think that process is made very clear about, yes, we should resolve the issue. This is serious and urgent. This is big enough. So yeah, Susan's point, it makes totally sense. Yeah.
I love what you said, Fallon, because I would hear the term, like, fake it till you make it, and I thought that was something like negative, but now the way I think about it is like, yeah, be comfortable with being uncomfortable, like, and that whole like imposter syndrome, all of that, like, of course, as a founder, and you're starting some, like you're doing something that hasn't been done, you haven't done it before. And so that like faking it is more of like, okay, I don't know it, but I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna put in there, and then we're gonna make it happen. So I think for myself, to like learning to be comfortable with that uncertainty, and knowing that you don't know things and you need to bring in people. Like, I don't know how to code, and I decided I was going to make these apps, right? So you bring in good people. So we're a little touching on this a little. Was starting a company what you expected, or what were like your biggest surprises early on, from starting a company, or from when you come in to help a company that's already been started? And I'm so you're nodding your head.
I believe all the entrepreneur and founder and CEO, every day is a surprising moment, and every day is the time to accept that you cannot do everything by on your own, or something very great. So there is a failure out there. So for me, the biggest realization that, oh, now I'm entrepreneur, now I'm running my own company, that is when I accept that the huge possibility of the failure. So when you go to the meeting with venture capitalists, VC, and the whole accelerator and investors, you never really thought that you would really fail. You only dream about the big success, and then your vision would come to into the reality, and you only see the possibility. But when you see the reality, 90% of the very early stage of the company is gone. And out of 10%, only 10% of the company get the Series A investment. So that 99% can be gone. So I can be part of the 99% and accept the fact that I might fail, and the journey should be meaningful. It's not the goal of the success and getting the investment. That is not the goal. Every day should be meaningful for your life. That is the only way to sustain the company, and then you can just live everyday life as a CEO and an entrepreneur. So I totally agree with Susan's point that if you have a kids at home, and then every day the time that you consume at the company should be meaningful. Otherwise, you don't have to do it. And there's a lot of things going on outside of the company. So when you accept the fact this is gonna be something, at the same time this can be fail, that moment is a true realization of the aha, that, oh, this is a running company now. I'm not just a part of any brand or corporation. So that was for me. Yeah.
Great. Fallon, what keeps you up at night? You're kind of incubating something, but or during node days, or what keeps you up at night, and or like in other ways, like what are some of your big fears, and how do you manage like that fear, that uncertainty, the things that keep you up?
So I would say, I mean, what normally keeps me up, I'm always thinking about, what are the biggest scaling points or bottlenecks or challenges that we're having, whether it's, oh, I need to hire like a particular person in a role as soon as possible or yesterday. So I'll spend, that's something that'll keep me up, and I'll spend a lot of time on, as CEO, one of your number one jobs is bringing the right people to the table to solve the problem that you've chosen. And finding the right people. I mean, I would argue the thing that was most surprising to me about entrepreneurship is half the battle is just surviving long enough to find the right people that then can turn this, moonshot of a vision a reality. And so that's a big part of it. It's always like, okay, what's the next big hire that I need to start building relationships now?
Mhm.
and to then get my dream, person. And I'd say another, obviously keeping the company capitalized. That's another very critical part of your role as CEO,
Right.
making sure that you can pay your salaries and also have the dollars that you need in order to have the time that you need to validate or hit your key milestones. And then I'd say like probably the last piece is also like, but not the least, is the culture. Like, am I creating the right environment and setting the right expectations and holding people accountable to the culture that is required in order to drive us success? And that comes in the form of the people that you hire and how you hire those people, in terms of how you lead and what actions you take and what you say and how you manage. And also in terms of the way in which you are setting expectations and then reinforcing it on a daily basis. So those are probably the biggest things that keep me up, no matter what business I'm doing, whether it's this current one, stealth or the one before.
I just wanted to build on something that Fallon said in terms of like what keeps her up at night, and the importance, for example, of finding the right team and surrounding yourself with the right people. And I would say that I think the entrepreneurial journey, as well as, for example, the role of CEO, is an incredibly isolating and lonely one. There are things that you worry about, whether it's, where your next source of funding is going to be, or whatever the problems are that you have to wrestle with on your own. And so one of the things, just from like a piece of advice I would give to anybody, is you got to find your tribe. You have to find your people. So that's, building the right team around you, but as well as outside of the company, like people who are going through this journey as well. One of the things that I think has been incredibly helpful for me is here in Silicon Valley, there has been a lot of it started out very grassroots, where some, female VCs and female operators started to organize just these. There's one that Aileen Lee organizes called Lady Fest, and it's generally like an outdoor cocktail event during the summer. And then Sukhinder Singh Cassidy, who most recently was the president of StubHub, and she started the board list to get more women onto private company boards. They organize these events just to bring women casually together. And I think from there, I've met a lot of amazing women who I can go to sometimes just to get advice from, sometimes to vent. And I think, what helps me to actually get some sleep is the fact that I don't have to feel so isolated and alone. You have to have like your people, whether it's, I think, I feel fortunate because my husband is also, he's not a founder, but like me, he kind of comes in as like the adult that they bring into startups. And so there's a lot that, we have in common that we can talk about. But as well as, but he will never understand what it's like, for example, to be a woman, and sometimes the only woman in a room. And I think that's where sort of having a group of people and a community of other, whether they're entrepreneurs or leaders, is so incredibly helpful.
I totally agree with that. In fact, there's Silicon Valley, and now I guess there's this thing called Chief, but there's CEO groups too, that I found incredibly helpful. Just talking to people that are literally in the same kind of stage as you are or ahead of you, you learn a lot, and across different industries too. I think that that helps give really good ideas too for your own business, and level set as to like, are you doing well, or are you kind of, beating yourself up a little too much, or, how could you basically improve? There's a lot of good resources there. It's a great point.
So it sounds like, what's been really helpful is trying to build your network of other, founders and women founders. And so that leads me to like, Susan, like, just in general, like when things are getting really tough, like what motivates you? I think you are often brought in when maybe things at the company aren't
Or really
going that
bad.
great. Yeah. And you have
When
to
I
be
show
the
up, that
adult and
means it's
make
not a
those
good sign.
those tough decisions, right? Unpopular tough decisions. So yeah, what kind of not keeps you up at night, but keeps you like going and motivated? Yeah.
I think I would say two things. Number one, I think that I fundamentally believe that any problem has many solutions. And so there is kind of that, just sort of the kind of intellectual perseverance of like, okay, let's try this. Okay, that doesn't work. Let's try this. You know, like I think just kind of that persistent of we can solve this. That keeps me going. I think the second thing actually, and this is probably the more important thing, is it's for the sake of the company, for the team, for the employees. Because what I find at companies, and particularly in my current company, Edmodo, the people who work there care very deeply about the mission. So in the case of Edmodo, it's about using technology to democratize access to education, right? And to really foster these great learning outcomes. And for me, what really keeps me motivated more than anything is that I don't want to let the team down. And you know, it's for their sake that I keep going. And it's so interesting because I think, and to be honest, I don't know if that's like a woman thing, but like, you know how they say there was been studies done about how like women don't really negotiate for themselves that well. And I don't know whether the data has changed, but where women actually are really good negotiators is when they're negotiating on behalf of somebody else, you know? And so I think that kind of dynamic is interesting. And for me, especially when I go into turnaround companies and I start bringing in my own team, that's when I'm just like, there's no way this can fail. You know, I like will not let this fail. And it's really just about, you know, how do because I care very deeply about creating opportunities for the team. I hire people who are way smarter than me. And, you know, I feel like my job is to create the best environment possible so that, you know, the team can thrive and grow. And I just try to stay out of the way and I provide air cover. And so I would say it's very much a people motivation for me, that no matter how hard it gets, I get up and keep going.
That's great. You know, we always hear about the success stories, but I'm wondering for all of you if there was a point where you thought about giving up. I can say for myself, I remember we were in an accelerator, and I remember with my co-founder, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and we were sitting in the little cubicle, and we were both crying like, "You're going back to school. I'm going back to London." Like it was like it was over. And that very next day is when our lead investor called us into the office and invested. So it was like, I guess, you know, we thought it was all done, and we were sitting there just like, oh. But just wondering if you guys have had a period where you thought that's it, but obviously that wasn't it. Fallon, did you have any of those moments?
Well, I mean, I sold my company, so I guess like that, from that point of view, yes. I would say, you know, for us, it was largely, I mean, other than the pandemic, that was not like that definitely affected the process, but it wasn't the reason why we ended up choosing to exit. I would say for us, it was largely around market timing. So we had, we built the first, you know, horizontal AI platform as a service, which is a fancy way to say we could take sparse data sets and generate prediction models that then could be operationalized in third-party applications and for API calls. So basically making AI very easy to implement. And we were already 18 months ahead of the market. And then once the pandemic hit and the market completely shifted, I mean, at that point, pre-pandemic, it's like, you need getting an edge and very much bull market. Everyone wanted AI. And then right when the pandemic hit, the first teams that they did deep cuts around were the data science teams, funny enough, and depending on the industry. And so from our point of view, we're like, well, we're already ahead of the market. We knew it was going to take some time after we invented the technology to then commercialize it. And so, what now with the market shifting, that pushed out the market much further, like at least 36 months. And so for us, we had to make a decision, we're going to continue capitalizing the company and building that market pull in a tough environment, or do we plug our tech and talent into an existing ecosystem that already has that market pull and then distribute the value of our technology far more quickly? And that ended up being the decision and path we decided to take. And so from that point of view, that was the right decision, I believe, for the team and the technology to drive the impact versus going standalone. So emotionally, I think sure we have those moments, like especially during the low times where it feels like, oh, everything's going to fall apart. You're not an entrepreneur, I feel like, until you really feel that at least once a week, especially in the early stages. But
once a day?
Once a day. Yeah. Ben Horowitz in his books, Hard Things About Hard Things, says, definition of entrepreneurs is like the same day you have sheer terror or complete joy. And that's really what it's all about, right? Being uncomfortable. But I think in those moments, what keeps me going is my passion and belief for, again, the problem that I'm solving, that I believe I'm the right person to solve. And I think that's what drives me and the impact that we can make.
Awesome. As we're wrapping up, I'm going to throw one last question out to everyone. What has been your most satisfying moment in business? Anyone?
Like recently, we've got a great news. Like just like Fallon mentioned, temporary tattoo product is really, really impacted by pandemic because people buy this product when they go to travel and when they go to festivals, but there's none of any travel and festivals this year. So we were managing, luckily and gracefully managing, because we had not only Korea, but Japan and other countries. But since it got longer and then it's going to be a long term of the pandemic, and then we can expect ourselves to travel or go to festival even next 2-3 years. So we thought, should we pivot to other beauty brands or other things? But as Fallon mentioned, this gotta be solved because tattoo is something that permanent and people cannot really experience temporarily. And when we launched and then introduced this product to the world, and people really like it about it, and our team and myself was the one who can resolve. And as an Asian woman, it's very taboo, and social perception of tattoo is really bad. So we gotta reserve this, and we need to wait, and it's really only to pivot and then how we can survive. And then we've got to work on, because the penetration of this product is still low, and then we desire to have a great collaboration with a big fandom and some other big things for introducing this product to the people. So we've got to work on to persuade BTS. So why don't we really collaborate and produce a great product? So you guys have, your artists have your tattoo on your body, and you guys are also afraid of your fans have a tattoo and they regret later, maybe 5-10 years when they have a keys. So why don't you really have a great things with a tattoo and a BTS? And then right after a significant deep down of the sales, and then we had a contract with BTS end of August. So we now preparing very, very interesting collaboration product based on BTS members and then songs. So the product is coming out early December. So when you hold the passion of the problem, and then you have the belief and really, really strong believe in your team and your capability and in your passion and vision onto that problem, like just Fallon said, and maybe there's some luck and grace fallen from somewhere. So that was a collaboration with the BTS, was the greatest moment for our team so far. So it's actually first time for the BTS, collaborate with this such a young corporate. We are just only 2-year-old startup, and they only cooperate with Samsung, Hyundai, and Shinsegae, one of the biggest company in South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking so much forward to meet the fan of BTS and other people in the States and Japan and any 46 different countries in December.
That's awesome. Congratulations. I'm really big Army, so I'm gonna
Wow.
use your product. I've been Army for 5 years. I'm so proud of those boys. So
I'll send the product to you.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. I think we've run out of time. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. It's been really fun for me to speak to all of you and hear your stories, and you know, good luck to everyone out there during Demo Day. And thank you again, our panelists, for joining on this wonderful discussion. Bye.